In the NFL, there is a curse that ruins careers. For decades, the players who have appeared on the cover of the Madden NFL video game have then fallen victim to terrible form and major injuries. And this consistent misfortune is known as the Madden Curse. But is it real, or is it just a popular myth? Let's find out. For a professional athlete, being chosen to appear on something like the cover of a Wheaties box is a huge honor. But for the Madden video game, it's different. Even though the Madden franchise is certainly massive in both scope and relevance, this curse overshadows any potential honor that being on the front of the box would have. Now, a wide variety of positions and franchises have appeared on the Madden cover throughout the years. But one team, who is no stranger to misfortune, has been the central character of the story of this curse, and that is the Detroit Lions. Today, we're going to dive into the Madden cover curse and the Lions beginning in the year 1984. That year, two entrepreneurs and game producers, Joe Ibarra and Trip Hawkins, approached iconic football broadcaster and former coach John Madden with an idea for a game. They would build the world's first football simulation game if Madden would provide the necessary expertise for the game, as well as, importantly, endorsement. Madden agreed, and so over the next 4 years, this new game company, Electronic Arts, slaved away at the game. And then in 1988, it was done, and it was also very thorough, coming complete with play diagrams, commentary on coaching strategies, and an individual rating for each player in the game. And so, John Madden Football was released for the Apple II computer, with Madden himself featured on the cover of the game. Now, John Madden must have not really believed in the game, because when EA offered him the opportunity to buy up stock in the company's IPO, he turned it down. A decision that he has come to regret, because within just 6 years, the Madden football video game series had exploded in popularity, beating out all other football and even just sports video games to become the best-selling sports video game franchise. Through this rapid growth, John Madden maintained his status as the face of the game, appearing on all the covers of the early Madden games. But this did eventually change. But before we get to that, let's put a pause on this virtual world and zoom out to the 1998 NFL season. As the season drew to a close in Week 15, the Detroit Lions traveled to Northern California to face the San Francisco 49ers. Detroit wasn't having a great season, coming into the game with a 5-8 record. While on the other side of the field, the excellent San Francisco team was, at this point, essentially guaranteed a playoff spot. So, as this Detroit team visited San Francisco, hopes were not very high. But they had no way to expect the kind of game that was in store for them. So, the bright spot for the Lions this season was their running back, Barry Sanders. Barry was the kind of player that teams dream about. He played 10 seasons for the Lions and made a Pro Bowl in every single one. He was generational. But even the great Barry Sanders wasn't invincible, and he certainly looked mortal in this game against San Francisco. In the first half, he rushed for only 11 yards across 9 carries. While on the other side of the field, a different running back was taking over, rushing through the Detroit defense again and again. And it wasn't just the rushing. Altogether, the 49ers dominated every facet of this game. They scored 4 unanswered touchdowns before the fourth quarter, putting the hurt on Detroit on the ground and in the air. And as they did, they continued to stuff Barry Sanders and the rest of the Lions offense. The game was a disrespectful beatdown, as the 49ers dunked and danced all over those poor Lions.
It off, and this man can dance.
How does his head stay on his shoulders?
It was 21-0 at halftime. And after watching Owen celebrate, Young tries his own, yeah.
And ultimately, this Detroit loss didn't seem that remarkable. I mean, the Lions were not favored to begin with. But the disrespect and the dominance from the 49ers awoke a curse that would ruin the careers of many players to come. Now, let's go back to the video game. Madden NFL 99 would be a big milestone for the series. The first multi-platform football game to be fully in 3D, as well as the first to have the now iconic franchise mode. But despite all these big changes, on the cover of the American version of the game, it was business as usual. John Madden was there in his normal place on the cover. But for the international version, something was different. Madden had ceded his cover spot to the 49ers running back, Garrison Hearst. Hearst was coming off the best season of his career. In the 1998 season, he set a then San Francisco franchise record for most yards in a season at 1,570 yards, averaging over 5 yards a carry. A special highlight for Garrison came late in the season when he exploded for almost 200 yards in a single game. And as you might have already picked up on, that game was that Week 15 disrespectful destruction of the Detroit Lions. And so, with Garrison Hearst capitalizing on that beatdown of Detroit to then appear on the cover of the Madden video game, the curse took notice. As that year's NFL playoffs began, 49ers fans fully expected Garrison Hearst to continue his great form. But in the divisional round versus Atlanta, on the very first play from scrimmage, Garrison's foot caught in the turf, causing an awful ankle break and promptly ending his season.
And he is hurt now.
That is not the way for a fast start for San Francisco. And even forget the fast starts. He is the major part of their offense.
The curse had claimed its first victim. Jumping to the next year, right before the turn of the millennium, Madden NFL 2000 was released. And while John Madden remained in his usual placement on the cover, the aforementioned Barry Sanders was pictured in the background of the cover art. We know Barry is great, but with him now on the cover of the biggest video game in sports, let's really put it into context. His career began at Oklahoma State University, where he became the starting running back in his junior year, and then had an unprecedentedly good season. Here's every other college running back season that ran for over 2,000 yards, already representing the best of the best. And as you can see in the top right, Barry Sanders stands alone as the running back with the most rushing yards in a single college season. The numbers that Barry was putting up in this college season look almost fake. He scored at least 2 touchdowns in every game that he played, and he had multiple games with 5 rushing touchdowns. It is worth mentioning that number 4 in this list is Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, who is having an incredible 2024, and his season is not over yet. If he logs plenty of yards in his upcoming playoff games, he could potentially break the record. But it's also worth mentioning that Barry's stats here don't include the bowl game that he played that season, which, if you do include it, brings his total up to an insane 2,850. Barry didn't fit the mold of a typical athlete. He feasted on junk food and played pickup basketball for hours the day after running the football for over 300 yards in a single game. His greatness transcended our normal human understanding of how to be an elite athlete, but elite he was. This superhuman season earned Barry the 1988 Heisman Trophy, and he was drafted by the Detroit Lions soon after. In the NFL, he didn't slow down at all. As a rookie, he rushed for 1,470 yards and was named the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Barry was so dominant and so hard to tackle that opposing coaches couldn't believe it, and they demanded that they check his jersey for silicone. Here is how many yards that Barry rushed in every season of his NFL career. As you can see, there wasn't a single season where he rushed under 1,000 yards, and he is the only running back in league history to ever do that. Barry spent 10 seasons in the league, and he was prolific in every single one of them. Defenses could not figure him out, and they couldn't stop him. Additionally, he's one of, to this day, only 8 players to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season. And this, fittingly, was the season where he won MVP, to join his Heisman Trophy in Barry's personal trophy case. And going into only his 11th season of professional football, he was already the second leading rusher in league history. And still at the top of his game, Barry was unsurprisingly selected for the honor of being that year's Madden cover athlete. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the day before training camp was supposed to begin, Barry Sanders retired from the Detroit Lions and the NFL. The decision still largely remains a mystery, but it was certainly a massive blow to the Detroit team. Reportedly, the star running back just no longer felt any sense of passion or drive for the sport. And I guess I can buy that. The Lions were decidedly not Super Bowl contenders, and Barry had already won the greatest individual award in American football. But perhaps Barry saw the writing on the wall, and he was scared of getting injured like Garrison Hearst before him. Either way, the curse got to the great Barry Sanders, proving that it could exercise its power in subtler ways than breaking an ankle. So with Barry now retired, the EA team needed to scramble and find a new athlete. So they turned to the up-and-coming Green Bay Packers star, Dorsey Levens. The curse didn't take kindly to this switch. In the 2000 NFL season, Dorsey suffered multiple knee injuries, only played 5 games, and was then discharged by his team the year after. 2 Madden games in 2 years, and 3 different victims. But the Madden series kept chugging along. Madden 2001 featured Titans running back Eddie George on the cover, and the curse didn't deal with Eddie at first. The running back had a phenomenal year right after the game came out, with career highs in rushing attempts, yards, touchdowns, and receptions. However, the curse was just lying in wait, waiting to strike at the right moment. In the AFC divisional round, Eddie's Titans faced the Baltimore Ravens. The Titans were down by 7 in the fourth quarter when Steve McNair launched a pass to his star running back. In a very rare flub, Eddie George bobbled the football, with it landing right into the hands of Baltimore's Ray Lewis, an interception that he then ran back for a game-sealing pick six. This heartbreaking loss would mark the beginning of the end of Eddie George's career. 2001 was his last season, averaging over 3.4 yards per carry, and in his remaining 4 seasons in the NFL, he would fail to make another Pro Bowl, suffering from injuries the entire way. The next few years' cover athletes would fall quicker than that. In 2002, Dante Culpepper's cover year saw him go from an 11-win season and appearance in the NFC Championship in the season prior to throwing only 14 touchdowns with 13 interceptions in 2002, before ending his season with a knee injury and a disappointing 4-7 record. He was out of the league a few years later, failing to finish over 500 a single time. Madden 2003 and 2004 saw Marshall Faulk and Michael Vick succumb to the curse. After his cover appearance, Faulk ended a 5-year streak of 1,000-yard seasons, never performing at that level again and missing several games due to injuries. While Vick, still one of the most fun video game athletes to ever play with, fractured his fibula a week after the release of Madden 04. Vick only played in 5 games that season, and that's not to mention his eventual prison sentence after involvement in a dog-fighting ring. Ray Lewis, the cover athlete for Madden 2005, recorded 0 interceptions for the first time in his illustrious career and broke his wrist before the final game of the season. Madden 2006 featured Philadelphia's quarterback Donovan McNabb, who then had very public issues with star receiver Terrell Owens and then suffered a season-ending groin injury. The year following, he tore his ACL and meniscus. The next year, Seattle star Shaun Alexander saw his fate coming, publicly saying, "Do you want to be hurt and on the cover, or just hurt?" He knew he couldn't hide. After becoming Madden 2007's cover athlete, he suffered a foot injury, a fractured wrist, and a sprained knee. Because of this, he dropped from rushing a massive 1,900 yards to rushing under 900 his Madden season, and he was out of the league just 2 years later. The curse was working quickly, and it wasn't hiding. Troy Polamalu sprained his MCL in the first game of the season, Luis Castillo needed knee surgery, and Drew Brees led the New Orleans Saints to suffer one of the worst playoff upsets in history, shockingly losing the wildcard game to a Seattle Seahawks team that posted a losing record in the regular season. So after a consistent decade or so of the Madden cover athlete being cursed, the sports world began to catch on. In 2007, the Madden team approached the then MVP LaDainian Tomlinson to be that year's cover athlete. Chargers fans protested en masse, fearing their star becoming a victim of the curse. They respected the curse. LT eventually did not appear on the Madden cover, with sophomore quarterback Vince Young taking his place instead. Shortly after the announcement, Vince appeared on Jimmy Kimmel, making it clear that he wasn't worried. He did not respect the curse. In the 2007 season, the Titans quarterback threw almost double the amount of interceptions as he did touchdowns and suffered a quad injury. Now let's move ahead a few years to Madden 12. This year, EA decided that they were tired of being the arbiters of the curse, and they wanted someone else to blame. So they held a fan-voted bracket to determine that year's cover athlete. Enter Peyton Hillis, the Browns running back who had a surprising and productive 2010 season and was now Cleveland's representative for this vote. Peyton was surprisingly voted to move on over his first-round opponent, Ray Rice, after Rice actively persuaded voters to not vote for him, respecting the curse. Following that upset vote, and backed by a passionate Browns fanbase, Peyton was able to get voted over the likes of Matt Ryan and the #1 overall seed, Aaron Rodgers. In the finals of the bracket, Peyton faced off against a familiar face to Madden, Michael Vick, where Peyton would win over 66% of the vote, preventing Vick from becoming the first repeat cover athlete. Now voted in to appear on the Madden 12 cover, Peyton was forced to acknowledge the curse. For people to believe in this so-called curse, I can't wait to prove people wrong. The curse heard the challenge. In the next season, Peyton Hillis played only 10 games, missing time because of a hamstring injury and strep throat. The next season, he was released to the Chiefs and demoted to a backup running back. The season after that, he didn't play a single game. And then, he retired. The curse worked quickly when it was challenged, but it was starting to tire. For Madden 13, EA ran it back with another fan vote, this time with 64 entrants, 2 per team. The eventual winner would be Calvin Johnson, a superstar wide receiver who played in Detroit. So, for the first time in more than a decade, a Detroit Lion would be back on the cover. It was a torrid stretch for the Michigan-based franchise, including a 0-win season in 2008. But there was hope again, and that hope was on the shoulders of Calvin Johnson. Perhaps the Madden Curse was happy that a Detroit Lion was back on the cover. Perhaps the curse had claimed enough victims. Whatever the case, the curse broke. For now. His Madden cover year, Megatron would go on to catch 122 passes for a record-breaking 1,964 yards, cementing himself as one of the league's all-time best pass catchers and setting aside any possible thoughts of being affected by the curse. To follow up the hopefully now broken curse, the EA team decided to name the next year's game Madden 25 in place of Madden 14 to commemorate the series' 25th edition. Additionally, Barry was back. The Madden cover again featured Barry Sanders, marking consecutive games donned by Detroit Lions. This was also the first time that a retired player was featured on the cover, possibly a way to avoid the Madden curse from claiming another victim, and a way to emphasize that the curse was hopefully gone for good. And the curse remained silent. From 2014 onward, the Madden covers have continued to feature star players year after year, and for the most part, they have had both successful and healthy seasons. We saw incredible cover years from players such as Adrian Peterson, OBJ, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. At this point, the Madden cover curse was actively being mocked. Tom Brady, all-time great quarterback and cover athlete for Madden 18, posted a video addressing the curse and making it clear he wasn't worried about it.
To be on the cover of Madden NFL 18. Now, I've heard there are some of you out there who might be worried about something called the Madden Curse. See? No curse. All good.
Brady backed up his claims by winning a third MVP at the age of 40 and leading his Patriots to yet another Super Bowl. Though they did lose the big game in a surprising loss to the Eagles, so maybe the curse had its way after all. Either way, the curse was lying in wait, waiting for a reason to rear its ugly head again. And after the 2024 NFL playoffs last season, it would be reawakened. Starting in the wild card round, the Detroit Lions earned their first playoff win in over 32 years, beating the Rams 24-23 in a massive win for both the franchise and the city of Detroit. In the NFC divisional round, the 1-seed San Francisco 49ers dispatched the young Green Bay Packers, led by their star running back Christian McCaffrey, while the Lions kept their playoff run going with a win over Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, the NFC Championship was set. A titanic San Francisco team against a Detroit Lions team that could barely believe they were still in the playoffs after so many years of pain. It was a 49ers-Lions game that brought upon the curse, and it would be a 49ers-Lions game that would reawaken it. The game began, and on the first drive, Jared Goff led the Lions all the way to an early touchdown. San Francisco could only respond by pushing about halfway downfield into field goal position, and the 48-yard attempt was missed wide right. Leading 7-0, Detroit kept rolling, with a long drive downfield that ended with a David Montgomery touchdown. The 49ers, on the back of their star Christian McCaffrey, were able to notch a touchdown to cut the deficit in half. Next, San Francisco's quarterback, Brock Purdy, dropped back and was in some trouble. He threw and was picked off. Detroit took advantage of this fortune, with Jared Goff throwing 2 bullet passes that were deftly caught for big gains. One play later, and it was another Lions touchdown. To end the half, the teams traded defensive stops before Detroit notched a field goal to enter the halftime locker rooms with a score of 24-7. Detroit fans began looking to the Super Bowl. Holding a 17-point lead, they were just one half away from making it to the game. A game they've never played in their entire franchise history, and now it was starting to feel real. But then, it started to fall apart. The 49ers started the third quarter with a field goal to get some momentum rolling. Then, San Francisco's Brock Purdy launched a risky downfield pass that looked destined for a Detroit interception. If the defense caught this ball, it would completely stifle any 49ers momentum and make Detroit's lead near insurmountable. Instead, the ball somehow bounced off Kindle Wilder's face mask and right into the shocked arms of the 49ers receiver for an unexpected 51-yard gain. And that might have been the straw that broke Detroit's back. San Francisco converted the touchdown shortly after. On the next play from scrimmage, Detroit immediately fumbled the ball. With the ball back in the 49ers' hands, they quickly capitalized on it with a Christian McCaffrey touchdown. Just like that, the game was shockingly tied. The Lions' Josh Reynolds dropped a gimme pass on third down, and the 49ers responded with a field goal and then a touchdown. Detroit did manage one last score before the end of the game, but their fate was sealed. No Super Bowl appearance for the Lions yet again.
And there it is! The 49ers are going to the Super Bowl!
And as Detroit was cruelly given hope and then frustrated yet again, the curse reawakened. The 2023-24 season was an unbelievable year for Christian McCaffrey and his 49ers. CMC led the league in rushing, scored 21 touchdowns, and as we just saw, brought his team all the way to the Super Bowl. On June 11th of this year, it was announced that Christian McCaffrey would be given the honor of being the Madden cover athlete for this year's game, Madden 25. And this really was now an honor. The curse hasn't really appeared for almost a decade now, and so surely CMC would have another knockout year in the 2024-25 season. In an interview, he dismissed the curse.
There's been a long history of the Madden curse, and tell me the thought process from that perspective.
No, I'm not superstitious at all about it. I think that stuff is kind of myth, and whatever happens, happens. But I'm excited to be on cover.
As the 2024 season began, Christian McCaffrey found himself relegated to the sidelines with an injury, suffering from Achilles tendonitis in both legs. After flying to Germany to visit specialists and try and recover from the injuries, he missed the first 8 games of the 49ers season. He was able to make a return, but after only 4 games, he then suffered another injury, tearing his PCL in a loss to the Buffalo Bills, and is looking like he's going to be out for the rest of the season. On top of this, while they have been missing their star running back, the 49ers have had a mediocre at best season without CMC, and at the time of recording, they sit at the bottom of the NFC West standings. Clearly, Christian McCaffrey's lack of concern about the Madden curse has not aged very well. The Madden curse is back. And again, it's starting with a star San Francisco running back who just beat the Detroit Lions. Will it be back for good? Only time will tell. Thank you all so much for watching. I truly hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, you should consider subscribing, and you can also check out some of the other content I've made about the sport of American football. For instance, I made one about the playoff game in 2023 when a Cowboys kicker had the worst night of kicking in NFL history. It's a really interesting story, and you should go check it out. I'll see you in the next one.